Folks, how's it going? It's been a few weeks. That's my fault. It is my fault. I'll be completely transparent. I've been busy. I've been really busy. That's why I've been kind of lacking in the Hoss Chat department, but it's okay. We're back and we're on track. We're doing good. I'm doing good. I've just been busy with work, kind of getting some stuff together for some upcoming projects for 2024 and raising a puppy. And I'm actually moving. So I'm in the process of doing that. So lots going on. Folks, I thought for today's Hoss Chat, it would just be a little solo podcast. And I thought I would talk to you about something that I hold near and dear to my heart. Animals. I'm a big animal guy. Aside from country music and, being outdoors and things like that, I'm a big animal guy. I've had animals my whole life. That's kind of like always been my side hustle is like buying, selling livestock and other animals. I've had a majority of everything. The only things, it's probably easier to say what I haven't owned. I haven't owned a horse, I haven't owned a donkey, a mule, or a cow. That's all that comes to the top of my mind because pretty much every other pet type livestock animal I can think of, I've owned at one point in time, or at least sold it. And in being around that many different kind of animals and people and stuff like that, I've kind of amounted some crazy funny stories. Just because some animal people are notoriously known for being kind of characters. I think that's the safest way to say it. And I think it's kind of comparable to music. A lot of musicians, people I've met through music seem to be interesting and unique. The first story that I have about animals that I think is a real good one. I like to whip this one out at parties. It's a pretty good one. It's not actually even my own story. It's a story my dad has always told me that he experienced, but I think it's too good to not share. So my dad, who was on the Hoss Chat a few weeks back, Gary, he's a mechanic. And when you become a mechanic, you need to do your apprenticeship. You have to get enough hours before you can pass your exam. And so my dad was out in Petersburg, where he actually owns his business now. But originally, actually at the same location that he owns now, the same building, different business, but same building, is where he started his apprenticeship decades ago. And when he was working there was a farmer down the road, Roger, Roger lived a long life that he was actually still alive when I was born. And in high school, I used to do work on Roger's beef farm. Roger was a beef farmer and he would buy and sell cattle. And he had some mules and some horses and some goats. And he would do some cash crop as well. But I would go down there in the summer with my brother and we would just work for cash. And we learned a lot of stuff and learned a lot about hard work. But anyway, old Roger was an old beef farmer. And Roger's been a beef farmer for forever. He's passed away now. I think he passed away about 3 years ago. But Roger was a staple of that community for a long time. And my dad grew to know him pretty quick from starting his apprenticeship out there. So anyway, I digress. Go back in time to when my dad is like an 18-year-old kid. He's apprenticing at this shop. He just met this beef farmer down the road, Roger, and he's kind of starting to meet some of the locals and stuff like that. It's a pretty tight-knit community out that way. And anyway, Roger comes up to the shop one day and says, "Hey guys, if you see any cattle running around the road, they're mine. I just bought 2 expensive Charolais cattle, and they got out of the pen." And Charolais cattle are kind of like a blonde white cow. I don't really know what the market price is off the top of my head right now, but they're worth they're pretty penny. They're worth quite a bit. And Roger bought 2 of them. And I guess 2 of them got out, and he was not pleased about that. And so usually when cattle go out, it's kind of an unspoken rule that you talk to the neighbors and everything like that. And usually cows don't go that far. They'll kind of hang around, might even come back. Sometimes they'll take off. It depends really, kind of on the environment. And anyway, these Charolais, I guess, kind of went running. And one night, this guy that worked with my dad was down at the local drinking hole, the little tavern in Petersburg there. And he was driving down the road that my dad's shop is on. But also on the same road is where this beef farmer lived. So this guy's coming down the road. And I think as the story goes, this guy probably had a few drinks. Do not drink and drive. But anyway, this guy comes over the hill. And one of these prize Charolais cows is standing in the middle of the road. And this guy was coming probably like 100 over this hill and smoked the cow. And this guy was in like a 2-door regular body pickup. Like an old, probably like a 90s pickup kind of thing. Smokes the cow. And as you can imagine, if you hit a cow is like a brick wall of meat. That's a big animal. And he nailed the cow. and obviously had to call the police and everything. And he calls my dad's boss. So my dad's boss called my dad and said, "Hey, can you come with me? So-and-so from work needs some help." So my dad's boss picks him up. They drive out, and here's this truck sitting at the shoulder of the road. The cow's dead. Sorry to sugarcoat, the cow's dead. The cow did not live. Cow's dead. And the truck has a perfect indent of the cow's ass in it. So the cow was facing away from the truck on the road, and the truck came over and hit it right in the ass. But the perfect indentation of this thing's ass in the front hood. And truck was totaled, cow was dead, and Roger was pissed. Rightfully so, because there goes his prize cow. Yeah, that's just a silly one I think about. And to this day, whoever's alive still and knows about that story out that way talks about it as kind of like a historical moment. I don't know really signifying what, but maybe that's a good lesson. Don't drink and drive and mix cattle in. Doesn't work. Another animal story I can think of, this didn't happen that long ago. This probably happened like 6 or 8 months ago. Where I live on a small forest lot and a creek, and the creek runs down into a much bigger forest system. And there's trails in there. And I walk the trails probably daily, take the dog down there. I like going kind of around evening and walk down there, and you can see deer and things like that, lots of wildlife. And that's pretty commonplace. And yeah, about 6-8 months ago, I was going for a walk, probably just before sundown. So it was kind of evening. And that's when you see a lot of wildlife movement. A lot of stuff moves at kind of at dusk or dawn. And I'm walking through the woods, and I notice on the shoulder of the trail, there's probably, I think there was like 4 or 5 whitetail deer. And there was like, 2 or 3 adult does and a few of the offspring probably from the previous season. And they're just kind of standing on the trail, but their tails were up. And if you know anything about whitetail deers, if their tails are up, that's an indication of either, get away from me, I'm scared, I'm anxious. And usually the deer in this woodlot, they're like pretty used to people. They're not tame by any means, but they, if they don't like that you're close to them, they'll move. But for whatever reason, these deer were alerting to something. Their ears were on end, tail were up, and they weren't looking at me. So I wasn't the problem. And I was kind of just walking up, and I got pretty close to them. I'm not advocating for that. Don't go close to wild deer, especially any wildlife. But I probably got within 30 feet of them. And, I wasn't petting them or anything, 20 or 30 feet. And then they kind of moved from where they were on the trail to the other side of the trail. And I kept walking. And at one point in time, I was probably like 10, 15 feet away from this little small herd of deer. And they're staring over me. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I kind of just had this eerie feeling because I'm staring at these deer and they're staring past me. They're not looking at me. They're looking at something beyond me. And I spin around, and here is this big male coyote standing behind me. And I guess I intercepted his lunch or dinner at that point. I assume he was going after one of the yearling deer, because a single coyote, well, they could take down a deer, but you never know. And I was right in the middle of it. And you know what? There's a lot of fear mongering about coyotes, especially in urban settings and things like that. I hate to break it to you. If you live anywhere that's not Antarctica, you have coyotes in your neighborhood. They're in every North American city. They're everywhere. They're just really good at hiding. And in some places there's more forest than others, so you very rarely ever see them or hear them. But I promise you they're in your town and in your neighborhood. And I see them all the time, especially in my neighborhood, especially living in the woods. We see a lot of coyotes, or you hear them almost nightly. So they're not something that I'm scared of. It's just something you kind of have to respect. You watch the dogs around, but I'd never been kind of in that scenario where I was intercepting the coyote lunch. And I kind of just stood there for a minute. I looked at him. I didn't move, and I just kind of stared at him. And he spun around, went back into the woods, and the deer kind of went and did their thing. And yeah, that was kind of a unique story. That's not something that's ever happened to me. But yeah, I've been telling that story a lot because I thought it was pretty cool. I really wish I had my phone on me. I didn't have my phone on me, so I couldn't take a video or a picture or anything like that. But it was pretty cool. Folks, we're going to keep it short and simple this week. I just wanted to tell you a couple stories, let you know that I'm still alive. I'm not gone. Yeah, couple week hiatus, but we're back. We're back, baby. And we're going to be better. We have some guests coming up. And the next time you hear Hoss Chat next week, I will announce some 2024 dates. So I know I've been talking about that for a while, but I think it's we have the first string of dates to release and maybe a little bit of a tour. So yeah, I'll talk about that next week. And folks, enjoy the week. Spring's coming, the warm weather's coming. Keep it together. Put the pieces together and keep showing up. And I'll see you next week. Have a good time, folks. Take care.